best in history. Someone I've always admired. That's as far as most people got before the rest of the story disappeared into noise. Something happened on that field in New Jersey that nobody was ready for. Not the goal, not the scoreline. A walk, a teenager crossing an entire stadium of chaos to find one man sitting alone on the grass. And by the time the cameras caught up to it, it was already too late to stage. This wasn't planned. This wasn't for the broadcast. This was Lamine Yamal choosing, in the middle of the biggest night of his career, to go find Lionel Messi first. For 24 hours, nobody knew what was said. Then, Yamal broke his silence, and what came out wasn't just an apology. It was something closer to a passing of the torch, and it changes how you'll remember this entire final. Stay until the end, because Messi's own words back to him are the part almost nobody is talking about yet. Let's set the scene, because you need to understand exactly what this match cost both of them. Argentina walked into that final in New Jersey as the reigning champions, one win away from something no team had managed since Brazil in the early 1960s, defending the World Cup. Spain arrived as European champions, unbeaten through the entire tournament, built around control, patience, and a level of composure that had suffocated every opponent in their path. Two ways of winning football collapsing into one final. For most of the night, it looked like a stalemate written into history. Spain dominated the ball, dominated the shots, dominated the territory. 12 shots on target, and Argentina had none. And still, the scoreboard read 0, because on the other end of that pitch stood Emiliano Martínez, refusing to let the story end early. Save after save, he turned a one-sided match into a war of attrition, eventually setting a new record for saves in a World Cup final. Every time Spain thought they'd broken through, Martínez was still standing there. Then Argentina's night cracked from a different direction entirely. First, Enzo Fernández sent off. Then, deep into the match, Leandro Paredes followed him down the tunnel. 10 men. Then, effectively fewer, chasing shadows against a Spanish side that never needed to rush anything. Spain's win was even briefly snatched away when a goal was ruled out for a foul in the build-up, delaying the inevitable rather than denying it. And then it came. 106 minutes on the clock, deep into extra time, Ferran Torres finishing off a driven ball from Nico Williams to send an entire nation into the streets. Spain 1, Argentina 0. Champions of the world for the second time in their history. But the scoreline wasn't the story that outlived that stadium, because somewhere in the wreckage of Argentina's devastation, cameras caught something else. Messi, sitting alone on the pitch, still in his shirt, watching Spain celebrate a few yards away from him. And then Lamine Yamal, still just 19 years old, stepping out of his own team's celebration to walk directly toward him. Within minutes, it was everywhere. Clips, freeze frames, slow motion replays of the exact second Messi rose to his feet to meet Yamal halfway. Two La Masia graduates, one closing out an era, one arguably opening the next, wrapped in an embrace that neither of them seemed to want to end. Nobody outside that moment knew what was actually said. Everyone had a theory. Almost nobody had the facts. That's exactly the kind of silence this era of football doesn't tolerate for long. And less than 24 hours later, at a press conference nobody expected to turn emotional, Yamal was the one who ended it. Asked directly about the moment, about Messi, about what actually happened out there on the grass, Yamal didn't deflect. He didn't give the polished non-answer players usually reach for after a night like that. He said plainly that Messi is the best to ever play the game, someone he has looked up to for as long as he can remember. And then he described what he did with that admiration in the one moment it mattered most. He went and found him. He told him simply that he was sorry. 2 words, not a speech, not a soundbite built for headlines. Just a 19-year-old seconds after winning the biggest trophy in the sport, choosing to spend part of that moment acknowledging what it had cost the man across from him. It should have ended there. For most players, it would have. But this is Messi we're talking about, and Messi apparently had something to say back. According to Yamal, Messi didn't respond with congratulations, and he didn't respond with the usual gracious in defeat lines either. He told him to keep going his own way, that the future belongs to their generation now. Yamal said afterward that those words mean as much to him as the gold medal now sitting around his neck. Sit with that for a second, because that's not a normal thing to hear a losing legend say to the player who just helped beat him. There's no bitterness in it. There's no reluctant handoff dressed up as good sportsmanship. It's closer to a man who has spent 2 decades carrying the weight of an entire sport. Here's what actually happened over these last few weeks that made that exchange so loaded. Yamal came into this tournament banged up, still working his way back from a hamstring issue picked up at the end of the club season. He wasn't the version of himself that terrorized the Euros 2 summers earlier. More measured, more careful, clearly not at 100%, and it didn't matter. Spain won anyway, unbeaten across the entire tournament, because the team around him was built to win even when its brightest star wasn't at his brightest. Messi, meanwhile, was doing the opposite. At 39 years old, in what by his own admission is very likely the last World Cup of his career, he dragged Argentina to the final anyway. Injuries across the squad, doubts about the roster heading in, to 4 years actually meant anything, and he got them to the final regardless. Whatever happens with Argentina next, whatever comes after this, that final whistle likely closed the door on Messi ever playing in a World Cup again. He'll be 43 by the time the next one rolls around, and even he has stopped pretending that math works in his favor. So, picture the actual weight of that walk Yamal made across the pitch. Not a kid consoling a legend out of politeness. A player who is now, by trophy count alone, sitting on both a European title and a World Cup title at 19 years old, choosing to spend his own celebration acknowledging the man who's about to walk away from the tournament for good. And Messi, instead of retreating into the kind of guarded diplomatic answer that most players give in that spot, using it to hand something over instead. Keep going your way. The future is yours now. It's worth remembering, too, that Yamal wasn't the only one who went looking for Messi in that chaos. Pedri, another product of that same Barcelona academy, was reportedly among the first to reach him as well. 3 generations of the same club's production line colliding in the same 90 seconds on the biggest stage the sport has. If you needed a single image to explain why La Masia still matters, why that academy's fingerprints are still all over the modern game, this was it. And Messi didn't stop at what he told Yamal privately. Publicly, in the moments after, he was just as direct about what Spain had done to his team that night. He didn't hide behind the usual defeated champion talking points. He acknowledged, without hesitation, that Spain had simply been the better side. Said it plainly, no qualifiers attached. For that kind of directness says almost as much as the embrace with Yamal did. There's a deeper point sitting underneath all of this that's easy to miss if you're only watching the highlights. Yamal wasn't at his best this tournament, and Spain won anyway. Messi was still delivering the best version of himself at 39, and Argentina lost anyway. Football doesn't always reward the guy playing the best. Sometimes it just rewards the team built to survive the moments when its best player isn't at his peak. That's the uncomfortable truth sitting inside Spain's trophy. And it's the same truth sitting inside Argentina's loss. Messi gave them almost everything he had left to give, and it still wasn't enough against a team that didn't need its brightest talent to be brilliant every single night. Which is maybe exactly why Messi said what he said to Yamal. He's not handing the torch over because he's tired of carrying it. He's handing it over because he watched, up close, what this new generation is capable of even when it isn't playing anywhere near its ceiling. If a slightly below best Yamal is enough to help win a World Cup at 19, Messi knows better than anyone what happens once that ceiling actually gets touched. For Argentina, the post-mortem is already starting, and it isn't going to be gentle. There will be questions about the roster, about the fitness concerns that followed this squad through the whole tournament, about 2 red cards and a physical, ugly finish to the biggest match of the last 4 years that since triggered a FIFA investigation into what happened after the final whistle. None of that takes anything away from what Messi did to even get them there in the first place. He carried a team with real question marks around it all the way to the final of a tournament he almost certainly won't play in again. That's not a small thing to walk away from, whatever the scoreline says. For Spain, the celebration is uncomplicated in a way Argentina's grief isn't. A second World Cup title, 16 years after the first one, a European Championship and a World Cup now both sitting with a 19-year-old who spent this entire tournament playing through pain and still finished it as a 2-time continental and world champion. Whatever conversations happen next about who the face of this sport belongs to, Sunday night in New Jersey just gave everyone the answer in the most literal way possible. The guy currently owning that answer chose, in his own moment of triumph, to go make sure the guy losing it knew exactly how much he still mattered. So let's bring this together, because there's more than one story sitting inside that one embrace. There's the 2 words Yamal actually said out loud. There's the words Messi apparently said back, quietly, that Yamal is now carrying alongside a gold medal. There's Pedri showing up in the same moment, and an entire academy's fingerprints all over the biggest stage the sport has. And underneath all of it, there's the uncomfortable truth about this final. The best player on the losing side still lost, and the guy who wasn't even at his best on the winning side still walked away a champion. That tension, more than the scoreline itself, might be the actual story people are still talking about when this World Cup is a distant memory. Messi has already hinted this might be it for him at this level. If it is, this is how it ends. Not with anger, not with excuses, but with a 19-year-old walking across a stadium to tell him he mattered, and Messi telling him back that the future is already his. So now it's your turn. Knowing what Yamal actually said, knowing what Messi told him back, and knowing everything that happened to get both of them to that moment, do you think this really is the end of Messi's World Cup story? Drop your take in the comments, and if you don't want to miss what comes next for either of them, make sure you're subscribed before you go.